Hello, girls, guys, or otherwise. This is Rich, and welcome to our Saturday book study. We are, of course, as per usual, or as per the start of the series, going through The Inner Temple of Witchcraft by Christopher Penczak. As per usual, I will leave a link in the description below, and while you're down there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, so you can always see videos by me, as well as the little bell notification so you don't miss any, and hit the like button, the little thumbs up button, so that it appeases the algorithmic gods of YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and fix this mic there. Hopefully that sounds a little bit better. Don't know. Anyway, this is a really long chapter. And by really long, I mean it goes from 129 to 166. So that's quick math here. 37 pages. So yeah, quick math. Freaking genius. Anyway, so 37 pages. I'm not going to read a lot. I'm going to try to skip around a lot. Do read this chapter. It is steeped in a lot of Hermetic principles, and I just got the Corpus Hermeticum that is actually sitting over there. I just got that recently, so I will be reading through that as well. Not something that I had in my library, oddly enough, given all of the books that I have shown in other videos. I have a lot of books that need to be read, and that's actually not one of the books that I've had. So before I get too far in the weeds here, let me go ahead and turn off the distraction of the screen. So hopefully I stay in the screen, and let's take a drink of hot cocoa. Don't be deceived by the coffee wording on there. It is not coffee, it is hot cocoa right now. So, Chapter 8 is where we're at. This is Lesson 4, The Science of Magic. But before we get into that, let's recap on Chapter 7. The assignments that we've had. The writing 3 pages a day have not been really happening. I was doing really good at the start of the week, and let's see, what was it? Tuesday, I think I didn't quite get to 3 pages. Wednesday, I'm filming this on Friday. Wednesday, I think I did it like a paragraph. Thursday, we had some snow, and usually I start writing my 3 pages a day in the morning whenever I'm at work. I start jotting down some things, some ideas, some journaling that is going on in my life, and some thoughts that I'm having about different projects that I'm doing, and different things that I want to do. And I continue that throughout the day. Let me unbutton this a little bit. It's just real constricting. I've gained a little bit of weight during COVID. Let's say it's the COVID-19, and let's just say that it's only 19 pounds. Anyway, yeah, we're not going to get into that. But anyway, Thursday, and I know I'm making excuses for this. It took me 2 hours to get to work on Thursday for an hour trip, actually like a 45-minute trip. And then I'm like looking outside with all the snow and everything coming down, and doing my job here and there as I needed to. And by like 12 o'clock, I called the resident manager at the storage facility, or one of the storage facilities where I work. I said, "Hey, you're gonna have to come down. I have to go home. This is the roads are only gonna get worse." I was hoping that plows would be out a lot more. They really weren't, and it took me, again, for a 45-minute trip, it took me an hour and 15 minutes. So a little less time getting back, but that's after road crews have already been out there not doing a whole lot. But anyway, point being that I didn't do a lot of journaling because of that, and I know I'm making excuses, and it makes me feel better. Let's not pass judgment on that too much. But I've also been doing a lot of research in the background, and not in tandem with journaling, which I should make it a tandem thing with journaling And if you hear the bell ringing or jingling, that is little Miss Karen. And I'm turning on the monitor, so maybe if she comes into the view here, I don't know if she was over here enough that you could see her. But little Miss Karen looks just like little Houdini that I used to have. That is actually still with me. She's with Coda, and they got cremated together, all that stuff. Anyway, yeah. Not the last time you're gonna see this necklace in this video, but anyway, oh my gosh, I'm already at 6 minutes. The 3 pages a day have been something that I've been a little laxed about because of the other circumstances around it, and not journaling and researching in tandem, which I should be doing a lot more. So, honor and recognize your intuition. Continue to ask it questions. Always do that. Oh, excuse me. A little gassy. I did not practice the orange meditation, and today I'm actually going to do the meditation for the instant magic. I have my mudra picked out, and today is the day that I'm going to go ahead and set my trigger and whatnot, as we discussed in, I believe it was chapter 5, or maybe it was 6. I think it was chapter 6. One of those chapters previous to chapter 8. And he says use instant magic in your daily life. Haven't really done that per this book. Always do anyway. Anywho, so let me know how you're progressing on these assignments as I hit the mic and everything. Oh, I am so sorry, guys. But let me know how you guys are doing with your assignments by leaving a comment in the comment section below. I love hearing from you guys, and I try to respond as comments are coming in so I don't get bogged down. I have gotten some comments on what you would like to see on specifically Christo-Paganism Sundays and Witchy Wednesdays. So if you have any ideas, my pre-planning of what to cover on certain days is kind of running a little bit low, so go ahead and help, inject that with some subject topics. I would love to cover them, so leave those topics below. Just put, hey, for Witchy Wednesday, or hey, Christo-Paganism Sunday, or hey, topic for you to cover. Just put that in the comment, and yeah, I will schedule it accordingly. And I got an itchy nose. This always seems to happen whenever I start filming. Anyway, now that I've blabbered on for about 8 minutes plus, let's go ahead and get into chapter 8. I'm not going to edit this down very much, and I'm going to try to speak a little quicker than I usually do, read a lot less than I usually do, and we're going to try to get through this in 1 hour. Again, 37 pages. It's going to be a lot. So let's get started. Let's get comfy. Grab yourself a hot cocoa, tea, cappuccino, coffee, whatever your beverage of choice is during these studies. Let's get going. So chapter 8, lesson 4, the science of magic. We start out with, of course, a lovely opening line to this chapter saying you don't need to understand how a car works to drive one. You don't need to study magic theory to do a spell, but magic theory is a science that can be studied. Very powerful, very true. Just because things work when you do them doesn't mean that it can't be studied, and it doesn't mean that you can't do them. I do suggest knowing the why behind what you do, knowing the intricacies of everything that you do, and a lot of what this chapter covers is knowing those intricate parts of your practice and why you're doing this and why you're doing that and what's going to happen with it is more so covered in this. There is a little bit of the why behind what we do covered in this as well. Moving on. Doing a ritual or reciting a spell can seem silly the first time around, but understanding the reasons behind the ritual or the chant can lend it credibility. Without this, a portion of our mind is always doubting our magical actions. I love this. I love that he points out that, there is a weirdness whenever you first start practicing. Very common. My first practice, I was very new, still questioning if Christianity and paganism can mix and all that stuff. As we know, as Christo-Pagans, the predominant amount of us that watch this, it is totally a thing that is totally valid, and you are okay. Um, and I will be doing a video in the future on this, so stay tuned on that. Um, it's actually one of the comments that I had come by saying, hey, can you cover this, specifically this part? So yes, going to be covering that. So yeah, anyway, my first ritual was on Imbolc, and doing a ritual kind of seemed really weird because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know why I was doing it. And as I study more and more, I find so much beauty and in symbolism in the why behind what we do. What are you symbolizing by walking this direction? What are you symbolizing whenever you're lighting this candle specifically? Who are you calling on to watch the quarters? Is this a spiritual entity that has a bodily form? Is it a just an energetic mass? Is it an elemental type? Is it a little, like, is it a fairy, a gnome? What is it that is sitting at these corners? Knowing the why behind your own reasonings for doing something just gains more power behind the act. It's more sacred. It's more central to what you're doing. So I love that he mentions this. Really going behind, or putting a little bit more oomph to the saying of the why behind what we do, which I lovingly stole from Annie, a good friend. I love her. Um, and yeah, I do need to write to Annie. I haven't written to her lately, and I do need to write to her. So little mind thing there for me. I'm gonna actually fix this just for a second. So you were a little too high there. I do a lot of talking with my hands and whatnot, so you being able to see my hands and what they're doing actually helps. Anyway, moving on, we're going to go to the bottom of page 129. An educated witch understands how real magic works in the modern world and can discuss it intelligently, even with someone who may not necessarily believe in it. Yeah, an educated witch. Yes, okay. So, the problem that I have with this phrasing is that just because you may be somewhat educated on one thing doesn't mean you're educated on all things. The thing I want to emphasize with this particular sentence is that you only are responsible for explaining your individual practice and why you do what you do and the why behind what that is. You are not responsible for discussing why a druid does something a certain way or why a Wiccan does something a certain way. If you know specifically the tradition behind it, then you can say, as my understanding is, it's because of this, this, and this. However, I would encourage you to go talk to a Wiccan or a druid or somebody that practices in whatever the tradition is. And that's something that I really want to stress, is that even though you are an intellectual witch or an intelligent witch, as is said here, right? Or an educated witch, doesn't mean that you have to be educated on everybody else's practice. If you have your own little niche of, say, Christo-Paganism, or if you study Wicca, or you study Druidry, I'm just picking these out just because they're easy ones for me to pick out of my brain thing. If you specifically study in those areas, then you can speak like an educated witch on those specific reasonings. However, if you are not involved in those traditions, do not feel obligated to say, this is why they do that, because it might not be why they do that if you haven't researched that. And part of me likes to always know everything about everybody's religion, because I love studying religions and traditions and philosophies and whatnot. That's something that I strive to do, is to learn as much as possible about everybody's different life path. Jelly, you gonna come over here and join us? Apparently she wanted out. Um, but there came a point in my time whenever it was like, okay, I do not have to be the authority figure on somebody else's practice. I don't have to know everything about their practice. And it's okay to sit there and say to somebody, go ask them, because it's not on me. But I do agree with them that an educated witch understands how real magic works. I can agree with that. Um, in the modern world, and can discuss intelligently even with somebody. Okay. So if you can sit down and talk with somebody and explain how your practice works, how your magic works, and how what your vision of how magic works, I think that's good. That's great. Um, you don't have to sound like some, snooty little, piece of crap out there that writes a highbrow book that only, like, 10% of the population can probably even understand. You don't have to talk like one of them. You just have to explain it in a simple term, as you're talking to a regular person, because you are. Anyway, we're going to move on because I'm spending way too much time on one page. Um, Middle of page 130, the scholars sought to understand the nature of the universe and how humanity interacts with it. In ancient cultures, the use of magic charms and psychic abilities was not only well documented, but accepted fact. So I like how um, he draws attention to this. The weird woo woo of the today, of our modern times, has not always been that way. That came from years of oppression and years of saying, well, that's just silly, that's not real, this can't happen, that's not the way things work. That's a modern thing that has come around. But if you look in the, even going back 200-300 years, it was accepted fact that certain things did certain, had certain effects and whatnot. It was accepted fact. And I think we've kind of lost that. And for the covert witch, that can be a blessing. But for anybody that, they really don't care, but they like to wear a certain necklace, you might constantly have to explain it. Like my triquetra. I've had to explain this so many times. In fact, even whenever I was in basic training, you were allowed to only have a necklace on if it was a religious symbol. And I had to explain to my training instructor that, yes, this is a religious symbol. It is Father, Son, Holy Ghost, anything that comes in threes, which is the symbol that I had on at the time. And I've worn this symbol ever since 2005, 6, somewhere around there. So I've been wearing this type of symbol for a long, long time. Not the first one I've had of it. I still do have the first one though. Anyway, but yeah, it was once seen as wearing a charm, protected you and whatnot. Nowadays, I think we make more of a fashion statement with some of our jewelry than we do having a purpose behind it. Certainly, some of my rings, like this one here, this is not really even a fashion statement. I mean, I have some nice looking rings here. I have these two here. But those are more fashion statements. Now, this one here, I've already explained, is the one that I have enchanted. I do have ones that are the what was it? Square and compass, the symbol for the Freemasons. I have one that has that. That has a symbolic reasoning to it, and me being a Mason, I would wear that. and that is an outward symbol. It didn't really have a protection charm or anything attached to it. My Clawda ring was enchanted and still is, I would imagine, seeing that I didn't clear it out or anything. So yeah, certain things like that, they have purposes and they are a charm. However, um, yeah, to the outside world, it might just look like a piece of jewelry, and you know, I think we've gotten away from the correlation of those two with the outside world and even within ourselves. So on both ends of it, I think we've gotten away from that. Anyway, I got to move on here. Um, Page 132, and I'm probably going to end up taking this damn sweater off because it's getting hot in here. Um, you know how the song goes. It's getting hot in here. Take off all your clothes. You guys don't want to see that though. 132, the Hermetic texts have gone through many translations, and like the Bible, some argue about how much of the true writings remain and what was seeded with the thoughts, ideas, culture, and interpretations of the ritual of the translators. Okay, so the thing that I have written here is question everything, and I have been a proponent of that, and I'm sorry, I'm getting undressed here on camera, but I have been a proponent of that for years. That's why I constantly say, what is the why behind what we do? Are we researching things? Are we going through things? Are we evaluating things? Are we checking to see if they actually mean anything to us? And what do they mean to us? And how much credit are we putting in that? So, moving on from that, at the bottom of 132, by coming into our own power and responsibility to that power, we understand that we are spiritual beings living in a material world, all interdependent on one another. Okay, in this sentence, what I really wanted to hit home with in this is by coming into our own power and responsibility to that power. So this is the part that I really want to stress on this, the responsibility to that power, and that when we take up this mantle of witch, we have a certain responsibility as people who cast spells or who do workings. We have a certain responsibility to what we do and why we do it and where it goes and how it eventually encompasses in fullness. So I did want to point that out. Then he goes into the principle of mentalism. So the principle of mentalism states that everything in the universe is a creation of the all. The all is a non-gender, non-pantheistic way of referring to the divine, whether you call it God, goddess, or the source, Tao, prime, vibration, first cause, Father, Mother, God, or Great Spirit. This force is also known as the divine mind. The principle of mentalism tells us that we are all thoughts of the divine mind, existing within the divine mind. The borders of creation are encompassed by the divine mind, and all of creation is permeated with the divine mind. Everything is composed of the same thing, the divine mind. We appear to be separate, but in truth, we are one. Okay, this phrase, or this principle, makes me very uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. I am one that this is a little too matrixy for me, and it seems like, okay, if I'm just a figment of somebody's thought, that's really terrifying to me, because I'm my own being with my own thoughts, and it's a little too meta for me to think that I'm think the things that I'm creating is a thought. So basically, I'm a thought creating a thought. That is way too freaking meta for me to get my mind around, and I can't. No, nope. I, I, I can't back that up. It is a little too cringy for me. It may be true, it may be false. I don't know. This is just theory, a theory, and it makes me cringe. I can't. Nope. Very uncomfortable. Must move on. Creation is the ability. This is on page 134. Creation is an ability and power we share because we are a part of the divine. Okay, this I can agree with, um, because like being part of the divine is something that is part of my cosmology. I have a divine light in me that comes from the source, and therefore I am part of God, as are you. The Namaste, the God in me recognizes the God in you, or goddess, however. Um, well, source, all, genderless, doesn't matter. So deity in me recognizes deity in you. So that I can get behind, but being a thought form of a thought, or me being a thought form, no, nope, uncomfortable. Okay, so he goes on to say, when we choose to create together in partnership, there is true magic and power. One of the necessary ingredients of magic is a clear intention. And what is a clear intention if not a clear thought? Learning to project your thoughts out into the world is a primary step in making magic. I cannot stress this enough. If you have a clear intention and you have a well-formed intention, a well-formed thought, you are doing magic. Sending that thought form out there in and of itself is doing magic. You are a magical being. Embrace it. So then we go into exercise number 13. It's a mental projection. I'm not going to go and read all of this. We're actually going to skip forward to page 139 at the bottom of the page. Many different systems exist. Hold on. Let me try that again. Many different systems exist to divide and subdivide the energies of the universe. As usual, no one system is correct. They are all different views of the same thing, and most work together on some level. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, and before I do that, I'm going to have a drink. Because by my clock, unedited, we're at about 30 minutes. So we're almost done, or half done. Sorry. Anyway, let's move on. So many different systems exist. So what I like about this is that he says, as usual, no one system is correct. That means that if you are pagan, your systems aren't going to be correct. If you're Christian, your systems are not going to be correct. If you're Muslim, Jewish, it doesn't matter. Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist, let's pick some more here. Whichever, it doesn't matter. Your system is not entirely correct. No one system is correct. No one system is going to be the be all end all for everybody. It may be correct for you. It may totally speak to you, and that's okay. However, there is no one system that fits everybody. We are all different. So he goes on to say they are all different views of the same thing, and most work together on some level. And the thing I like about that is, obviously, if you're watching my channel, you're either Christo-Pagan, or you're a witchy person, or just somebody that's curious about witchy stuff, or about Christo-Paganism, and that's okay. But I would say the vast majority of us that are here are Christo-Pagan in some way, shape, or form, or at least respect it, and I appreciate that to those who are allies. And the fact that he says this here is big. you have somebody that's taking their mantle as a pagan teacher, a Wiccan. I think he's part of a Wiccan tradition, but as a teacher, and he's saying, "Hey, there are systems out there that they do blend and they work together and whatnot." I don't know if that's really his point on this one, but I do appreciate that he says it because it does give us a jumping off point that we can say, look, if you're a student of Christopher Penzak and you don't agree with Christo-Paganism, he even says not all systems are correct, and most systems work together on some level. Just so happens, as Christo-Pagans, we are on the level where Christianity and paganism meld and work together. Thank you. Whether or not that's his original intent behind this, we do have other corroborating statements in the beginning of the book that do support his alliance or his alliedness. Yes. I don't know if that's really a word, and I'm going to turn this screen back off because it's starting to distract me. I don't know if that was his original intent, but we're gonna count it as a win. Tick. So moving on to page 140. Color and sound are... This is a big paragraph, so bear with me. Color and sound are one way of building a correspondence system. Some people build correspondence systems based on the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. The properties of fire are energy, passion, lust, and protection. If you wanted to do a protection ritual involving fire, you might use the color red and orange, a sword, red roses, or a ruby. They all correspond to fire. Others build a system from astrology. The same spell would probably be based on the planet Mars, a fire planet named after the god of war. Mars' energy is good for protection and aggression. Its color is also red. Many of the correspondences of fire fit Mars. Each system works. And then he goes on to say, a system of correspondences used in herbalism is called the doctrine of signatures, which I didn't know and I found very interesting. I wanted to highlight that. Moving down a couple sentences and on to the rest of the page here, or moving down a couple sentences and then down a couple more. Since witchcraft is based in tradition of healers and herbalists, and the doctrine is quite appropriate here. The herbalist looks for correspondences of shape, color, texture, and growing season to both the human body and to the elements. The energies of the plant world, formerly unknown, can be applied to the human world for healing. And then, very last sentence of this paragraph, by listening to the language of the correspondence, you can uncover many secrets of the unknown worlds. Whew, lot to unpack here. Excuse me. So we have a lot to unpack here, and I'm going to try to make it kind of quick on unpacking it all. So he does talk about building a correspondence. Not everybody's correspondences are going to be the same. There is a general correspondence that has come out that many authors, many witchcraft traditions subscribe to. There's a lot out there on green is for earth, and yellow is for air, and red is for fire, and blue is for water, and those seem pretty solid. Mainly because those are easy associations. But that might not be the case for everybody. And that's one thing that we have to keep in mind. But there is a slight science to it. I mean, you look at blue for water, that just makes sense. Red for fire makes sense. Green for earth makes sense. Yellow for air doesn't really make sense to me why yellow is air, but I'm sure there's a sense behind it, probably because of the sun, and the sun is in the sky, and the sky is associated with air. Probably something like that. Most of them make sense why they are attributed to certain things. And then you have the chakra system, as some people call it chakra, um, that the different colors are associated with, and the rainbow. And then you have stones and their correspondences based on the colors and what they are used for, what their properties are for. You have plants that have medicinal purposes. Also, the way that they make you feel whenever you burn them, or whenever you eat them, or some of them you definitely do not want to be eating. But you have different things that happen medically with the different herbs and whatnot. You have things such as salt that, they take away the capability of bacteria being able to, or wanting to, grow on a piece of meat that is covered in salt. Um, you know, you have situations like that where bacteria doesn't want to be on there, so it becomes associated with protection and keeping, bad things away. So that is something that, looking back at some of the history of the items that we use in our practice, such as why do we use quartz? Um, Probably because it has certain amplification properties that are not only evident in the metaphysical world, but also in science and computers and technology. Everything has a quartz crystal in there, and watches, and the way that watches work with jewels and whatnot. Um, why do we use that? Or why do we use quartz crystals? Common correspondence that has been backed by years of actually using it, in the or it's backed by years of metaphysics, and is now backed by hard science. So stuff like that. And with herbs, we have a history of use and of medicinal use in the ancient times that has now been proven more by science and in the health system and whatnot, and what certain herbs and resins can actually do. So there is a correlation with that as to why we use it for certain things. So as far as correspondence systems, many of them you're going to see that are, kind of the same. One thing I do want to say is, if you, I don't even have one here. Okay. If you have an agate, and everything has told you that this agate is used for connecting to earth and your root chakra or something like, whatever this agate is used for, I don't know, I didn't look it up. But whatever this rock is used for, and you don't feel that connection with that, go with your intuition at that point. But do keep in mind that almost everybody else is going to feel the connection with their root chakra and earth. So, thing to keep in mind on that. Most people are going to align with the traditional meanings because it's more comfortable and it does make sense, and it's a more widely accepted feeling. But if you feel totally different, if your energies are like, no, that agate is for, third eye opening, and I'm convinced it represents the air quarter in my practice, because that's what this rock is telling me, you go with that. And then write your own correspondence that pertains to you, especially if you're finding that things are working differently for you. Okay, I think I beat that dead horse a little too long. We're at page 142, and I want to try to get this done a little quicker. This may be a long video. I debated doing 2 videos and uploading them separately, but I'm just going to just power through and do one whole video here and probably not edit any of this. Okay, 142, principle of vibration. The principle of vibration states nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, everything is always moving, vibrating all the time. Love it. And this is, again, backed by science. Atoms are moving, and he does explain some of this in here. Atoms move. Everything in an atom moves, and you can split an atom and go into smaller things, and those things still move. And when you split those things, things are still moving. So, I mean, you can go to the subatomic level, and things are still moving and vibrating. So, something that needs to be kept in mind is that even though we're sitting still, we're still moving at quite a fast rate. So, yeah, everything is vibration. Nothing rests. Page 143, about halfway down. Mystics from many traditions talk about vibration and increasing your vibration to a more spiritual level as part of the mystic's path. Okay. Raising your vibration, intentionally raising your vibration. And I want to speak on this just for a little bit. Intentionally raising your vibrations is fantastic if that's, your goal is to be more psychic, more in tune, more connected to source or to your angels, guides, guardians, what have you, deity in and of itself. Fantastic. Keep in mind, you should not be staying there. Staying too high in vibrations for too long can actually cause headaches. It can make you feel kind of sick, kind of lightheaded and whatnot. Whenever you are done with the session, do remember to ground and release a lot of that energy. Bring your vibrations back down to where the mundane is. So I did want to touch on that. And then he has exercise 15 here. Again, I'm not going to go into that. He goes into the principle of polarity. And at the top of page 147, he says, precision in word and thought is essential in magic. And I cannot agree more. Be careful of what you say and what you think, because what you say and what you think will go out into the world, and we're going to get to that here in a minute. I slightly disagree with a point here on 147, where he says, and I'm not disagreeing with the hard science of it. He says, ions are electrically charged particles found in the environment. Got it. Correct. When you go to place when you go to a place with churning water, an ocean, a waterfall, or even a bath or indoor fountain, you are taking in ions that make you feel good. Electrically, they are negatively charged ions, yet they promote good health and relaxation. You may feel sluggish or sick whenever you spend a lot of time around electrical equipment, particularly computer monitors, televisions, and microwaves. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. I'm sorry, guys. But we're going to just push through. That is because you are absorbing another type of ion that promotes these feelings, positive ions. When you intend to banish all negative energy, are you banishing negative ions? When you call all positive energy into your life, are you calling positive ions too? Even though you don't mean it that way, your words betray you. If you are banishing all harm, say you are banishing all harm, not just the negative. Your thoughts and words are powerful and must be precise. I can see where he's coming from on this, and I kind of agree. However, I think in this, that the intention and the will of what you're putting out there, I think that overrides the word, um, somewhat. Now, I can agree with him a little bit on this, um, but whenever you're thinking, I banish negativity. Um, Technically, the positive ions are positive, or are they're positively charged, um, but it's not positivity. We're talking about an intention of energy. So, in this intention of energy, the negative ions would actually come if I'm calling in positivity. If I'm banishing negativity, then the positive ions would be banished because it is the negative energy that they carry, even though they're a positively charged ion. So a little nitpicking on vernacular there. I kind of agree with him that um, if you're leaving it if you're leaving things vague, if you are leaving things vague, I agree with him. If you know your intention and your words are matching your intention, even though negatively charged, not negativity, but negatively charged ions are good for you, I think that your intention would figure it out. And I think the universe, um, source, energy, the all, I think that knows more of your intention. And I think, deity would kind of step in and say, hey, he asked for, positive energy, not positive ions. I think deity would step in and be like, no, positive ions, stay away. I think there's a certain level of that filters through. Um, so I kind of agree with him, but I kind of also disagree. I do respect the point here, though, of being intentional with what you say and what you do. I do agree with that. Then he has exercise 16, polarity of earth and sky. We're going to move on to principle of rhythm on page 150. We're chugging along here. Let me get the screen popped up here so I can see what our time is looking like. We're sitting at 15 minutes by my clock, um, prior to editing. So, principle of rhythm. He says on page 150, learning to recognize the tides of natural energy is an important part of witchcraft. The seasons are natural cycles honored by most tribal earth-loving people. Certain times of the year express a different kind of power than other seasons. Feelings, moods, and even health are altered by the seasons because of the energy embodied by each turn of the year. I agree. And he mentions it further on in this chapter, or on the next page. He says many people suffer from actual diagnosed seasonal dysfunction, and that's what I immediately thought too whenever he said the natural energy and the natural flow and the seasons and whatnot. That's what I immediately thought too. But yes, keeping in mind that there are natural cycles to things. And we're actually going to get into that now. On page 151, and we're going to cover these a little bit more after all of this reading here. The most important rhythms to be aware of are the cycles within yourself. People having their own seasons too. Women go through the profound cycle shift every 28 days and go through the larger cycles of entering womanhood at the onset of menstruation and then entering a season of elderhood at menopause. Although the hormonal cycle of men are not as physically dramatic, they too experience internal chemical rhythms as well. don't know what you're talking about. Things such as going through puberty or, just general growing up. There's a reason they call it growing pains, because sometimes it's quite painful to individuals. Um, but knowing how to, as we are going through these cycles in our life, uh, and for those women who bleed, as it is, I think more appropriately being dubbed, because gender is fluid, and I want to respect that. But for women who bleed and have that menstruation period, this may be a lot easier for you to link up with. For somebody like me, who identifies not only as a male but is was physically born with male body parts, um, I don't notice these things happening in my own body as often or as dramatic, obviously. But there are certain times whenever certain cycles come and go. Like, I will be more interested in studying this than studying that. Like, there may be a point in time where, hey, this time it's that time of the month where I'm really interested in tarot cards. But then, a couple days later, it's that time of the month where I'm really interested in reading and whatnot. But I think those are just natural cycles. I never really paid attention to them as a rhythm of life. I can understand it, and there's certain times whenever I feel more alive and more awake. I'll tell you this past week, I was dragging ass at work, and it does seem to be, and I think with journaling, as you can see my journal sitting right here, I think with journaling this and journaling what happens during certain times of the month or certain cycles and seasons, looking back at that might reveal a little bit more about how my body has its own natural rhythm, how my personality has its own natural rhythm, and whatnot. Moving on. He does say, have you ever noticed how certain seasons empower you while others debilitate you? And then he goes into the seasonal dysfunction. After that, at the bottom of that paragraph, for many it is for many it is the month of their birth. They feel excitement for the birthday. I never do. Okay. Which puts them in a good mood. Not me. Metaphysically, the effect comes from the sun being in your personal sun sign, the sign it was when you were born. I like this. I don't have much else to say on this. During December, my birthday is December 25th. If you didn't all know, you can get me gifts and send them to me. I will give you an address to send them to, and you can send them there. For birthday gifts, whatnot. Anyway, just because you love me. No, please don't. That me getting gifts is weird. It makes me uncomfortable. Please don't. Anyway, I do feel a certain aspect in December, of being a little bit more focused on my goals, and for me, it being in. Oh, as my lights go out, because it is now 10 o'clock, which is whenever the timer goes off. But anyway, for me, the time of December, since it is December 25th when my birthday is, the sun stays in my house until middle of January. So it's like, okay, from the end of December until January, I'm pretty okay with everything. Let me just get some here. I'm pretty focused on stuff. I'm pretty okay with everything. I'm just going to try to put these on. And I don't know what's going on with this. I got to fix that light back there. There's something with the plug that it went offline, so I'm going to have to figure that out and figure out what's going on with it. Anyway. He goes on to say at the bottom of 151, being in tune with the rhythms of a particular season, month, moon, and or your own self can make your magic easier or harder. I think that's important to touch on. And then he does go into the term of lunacy and, with the full moon and how that affects people and whatnot. I did want to touch on that because I do find that fascinating. Then he has exercise 17, heartbeat control, and then he has the principle of gender. Now, in saying this, I do want to say, as I've said already in this video, that gender is fluid. Gender fluidity is a thing, and I want to respect that. And keeping in mind when this was written, what was it, 2005, I think. Oh, come on, Rich. Get your life together. It was originally written, this is the 7th printing. This is in 2009 that this edition came out. But I think the original was written in 2002? Was that correct? Yes. So this was originally written in 2002. Gender fluidity was not as central of a focus. So I would really like, if he updates this, that he does touch on that. Christopher Penzek is a gay male. I think that he would respect gender fluidity and whatnot. I don't want to put any I don't want to project any thoughts onto him that are not his, but I would assume, and it's not safe to do, that he is fully behind gender fluidity. But there is a part in here that I do want to touch on that does kind of talk about a little bit of the LGBTQ plus community. But not specifically gender fluidity, which I think we need to address more. Anyway, this is on 153. In general, masculine energy is attributed to the more logical, rational, aggressive, and physical traits. Feminine energy is ascribed to the intuitive, creative, healing, and emotional traits, although there is much debate in our society as to what is really a feminine or masculine trait. Depending on the historical time period, those labels could be different, even reversed. Yes. The label does not matter, but the concept does. Which I think by this, I think it is okay to not use those labels. I think you can say the projective or receptive type of energies, instead of these labels of masculine and feminine. I think these are outdated terms that we can probably do away with overall. Moving on, everyone has these two forces, creative, expressive energies, and for our own well-being, you must be able to use both. Correct. In ancient times, those who had an unusual mix of such energies, particularly lesbians and gays, were honored as healers and shamans in various tribal cultures. Yes, I kind of love that. I love that the LGBTQ plus community were revered in some cultures. I absolutely love this. Kind of wish we had the same equal rights and acceptance nowadays, but, well, something to fight for. I will say, it gets better. especially whenever you get older and you don't give a shit what anybody thinks. So, just putting that out there. Moving on to page 154. He has here, traditionally the moon is associated with the goddess. Okay. And then moving on a sentence here. The sun is considered part of the god. As a light and a life giver, his rays help Mother Earth bloom with life. So you see that he is projecting his ray onto the moon, which is receiving and, blooming with life. I actually love the way that he says this. And it's something that I might actually steal in the future because it is such a simple way of saying it. So I really love that. Then exercise 18, sun and moon. And we're going to try to speed things up because we're at page 155 now, the principle of cause and effect. The last of the 7 Hermetic principles seems to be the most scientific. The principle of cause and effect states, every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. When I first heard this, it sounded like something from physics class. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Moving down to the next paragraph, the axiom reminds us that nothing happens by sheer chance. Many things that seem like coincidences have a cause somewhere. And I think that is important to note that if something is coming to you, if you're feeling negative energies or positive ions coming your way, then I think that you need to keep this in mind, that this comes from somewhere. Is this something that you put out that's coming home to roost? Or is this something that somebody else is putting out? And really kind of do that sleuthing work that comes along with knowing what's going on in your life and why it's happening. At the bottom of this paragraph, if your every action has a result, you must be careful and accept responsibility for everything you do. Totally agree. Knowing the why behind what you do and what's going to happen and how it's going to affect everything else. Moving down to the next paragraph, I later found out that many metaphysical books of thought believe that the energy of our thoughts, intentions, and actions are amplified in the universe, and when they return with more strength. All energy eventually returns to its source, but the energy adds inertia to it, making its effects much more widespread. And he links this to the Wiccan principle of the threefold law. Not necessarily times 3, because how do you measure something like that? But I do see where he's coming from here, and I do appreciate this. I think this is worth mentioning, which is why I'm mentioning it. At the bottom of the page, there is no moral judgment of right and wrong or good and evil. Witchcraft is based on concepts of balance, harmony, and cyclical change. So, yes, I like that. I will say, even though there is no moral judgment of right and wrong, good and evil, I think that is still something that the individual practitioner should come up with. Have your own moral compass. Write it down. Where are your boundaries at? What will you and will you not do? Will you ever do a binding ritual? Will you ever do a baneful type of magic? Will you not? And why not on both of those? If you choose or do not choose to do them. Why would you choose to do it? Is there a circumstance out there that would call for that? Stuff such as that. I would write that down. Have your own moral code to live by, because in witchcraft and paganism, there isn't necessarily one that's concrete. Now, for Christo-Pagans, we kind of have one because we can look at biblical teachings and parables and mythos out there. We can go by that, but you still don't have to. Because if you look in the Bible, it does have stuff about slavery being okay. And I think that is important to note whenever you're saying, well, I'm Christo-Pagan. I have the Bible to go by. You don't have to. Not explicitly. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people get hung up about with Christo-Paganism. It is about the deity more than it is about the book. Anyway, moving on to page 157. You can do whatever you want, but you must accept the consequences of your actions. Very important. Always teaching this. My Christian friends and students are always so surprised to find out how close the Wiccan Rede is to the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In essence, both are saying the same thing. I love the correlation. So, and you find that even the Dalai Lama says, this is a common thing in all religions, love and being love and projecting love and just, love is, everything. Love is religion and, is the root of all religions. And I absolutely love that whenever the Dalai Lama said that. So, anyway, the current Dalai Lama as of 2021, February 19th. So, yeah, I do want to mention that. I can't remember what number Dalai Lama he is. I do apologize on that. Moving on. He has exercise 19, which is a tree meditation, and then he talks about neutralization. And we are fastly approaching the end of this chapter. This is a long chapter. I think this might be the longest chapter of the book, but I'm not sure. He says, neutralization, telling ourselves that we must take responsibility for our actions is one thing, but doing it on a daily basis quite another, particularly if we were not raised in an environment that encouraged such behavior. Yeah, I think, yeah, we a lot of us are raised in the, it's somebody else's fault type of situations. And, sometimes there is a certain amount of personal responsibility, especially as somebody who practices witchcraft and paganism and whatnot. Whenever you do a working, when you send something out, take responsibility for that and take ownership of that. If it comes back to you negative, then learn from that and adapt and overcome, and try not to do it again, because, well, it'll keep happening. And, there is a science to this. Learn it, adapt, overcome. Anyway, he goes on to say, middle of the second paragraph here on neutralization, which is a hard word to say. You try it. Neutralization is a mental process whereby we consciously send a thought out to ground and cleanse our previous actions. And I've never heard of this, but I kind of really love this concept. Excuse me. Then on page 160, he quotes an Islamic proverb, which I kind of really like. And it's been said many times, but I don't think most people know that it's a Islamic proverb. According to an Islamic proverb, each word we utter should have to pass through 3 gates before we say it. At the first gate, the gatekeeper asks, "Is it true?" At the second gate, he asks, "Is it necessary?" At the third gate, "Is it kind?" Mythology and shamanic initiations are filled with images of gateways to the underworld. If we watch the 3 gates, we never have to worry about neutralizing harmful thoughts. And then continuing to the next paragraph, I'm going to read the first and then the last couple sentences here. It should be clear by now that you should never use magic to harm another person intentionally, although there are times whenever it is tempting to do so. Moving on a couple sentences, or down another sentence here. You are not restricted to neutralizing your own harmful thoughts, but can neutralize the thoughts of others directed toward you. If you feel that someone magical or otherwise intends to harm or speaks badly of you, neutralize it. Never try to send back bad energy directed toward you. Neutralize it. That is the responsible way to handle it. Okay. I take issue with this. Okay, my issue is how bitch is gonna learn if you don't send shit back. And yeah, I he says that you should never use magic to harm another person intentionally. I sort of disagree. Okay. And I will explain why. There are certain circumstances, there are certain situations where people need to be taught a lesson. And for the health and safety of others, it needs to be done. I can't say that I have not done it, but I will always say that it was well warranted whenever I did it. So yes, if you are responsible in the way that you do it, and you do it with the right intentions, in order that other people do not get hurt, that it is directed towards one individual, the individual that it needs to be directed to, and in a way that they get what they need to get, not punishing overtly, just doing enough to neutralize the situation in and of itself. I think that is important. In an effect, I did neutralize the situation, and it was taken care of. That individual's not too happy, but other people are alive because of it, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, whenever he says, never try to send bad energy back, neutralize it, no. I disagree with that, because you know what? If they're sending energy towards me that needs to be neutralized, that means if I send it back to them, excuse me, sorry about that. If I send it back to them, then they're getting exactly what they deserve. So it's basically, I'm rubber, you're glue, and I will send it back to you. And I don't have a problem with that. If somebody is trying to attack you, energetically, or psychically, however you want to interpret it, if they are attacking you physically, seek help. Seek help from police and whatnot. Don't take that lying down, and alert the proper authorities on it. And don't entrust magic to fix that whenever magic's like, hey, you have a phone sitting right there, why aren't you calling? Something like that. Just because you do a spell, and even though you have a phone right next to you that can call the authorities, does not mean that you shouldn't be calling the authorities and that you should be only doing magic. I think that there's a certain logic in that. So anyway, yeah, there's some issue that I had with him saying that right there, because that's actually going to take us into what I do on Wednesday with the Wednesday's video of the mirror box. So yeah, this is actually a reverse mirror box. I've not seen any like it, and it's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm going to show it off, and I'm going to show some things that I intend to do with it. Anyway, He goes on to state some other magic laws. He says the Hermetic principles are by no means the only system of magical theory available to a prospective magical student. At the bottom of this section, he says, here are some additional magical axioms that I have found useful. The law of synchronicity. Synchronicity describes two meaningful coincidences that are not apparently linked through the principle of cause and effect. The link between the two is through the meaning of such events. Pulling tarot cards and accurately describe the events in your current life would be a synchronous event. In no way does the act of pulling the cards seem to influence your life, or vice versa, but how they coincide can lead to greater meaning and insight when joined together. At the bottom of this page, he says, the main lesson I learned from this law is to allow my intuition to bring me synchronous events. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Such events lead me to a greater spiritual awareness, lesson, or mission in my life. By following the trial of synchronicity, we often find our path. Okay, then he goes into law of association. The law basically says that if two things have something in common, each can influence the other. The more similarities they share, the more influence they can provide. Such an idea is taken from the principle of correspondences and your correspondence charts and whatnot. So this is the law of association. We do that a lot, this represents fire because cinnamon is a fire type of herb, or bark actually. But anyway, setting this on fire is a representation of fire. So anyway, having this represents that is a very common thing. So that is technically called the law of association. And then the principle of triplicity. This is basically the old wives' tale of things always happen in threes. Usually we see them in deaths. That's whenever you usually hear it the most. These things happen in threes. Whatever you do magically, do it 3 times, once each for the middle, psychic, and divine selves. Not necessarily why I do it, but there's a lot of significance of the number 3 in multiple cultures and multiple religions, and it is important to pay homage to that. And I do appreciate that it actually is a principle. But yeah, I never thought of that. Okay. And the law of symbolism. And this one he talks about our conscious mind does not necessarily understand raw, pure energy. We need an interface, a translator between us and the magical world. Symbols and words of power are often that interface. And one symbol that I always have is the triquetra. Matter of fact, if behind my illumination candle, you can even see a wooden one there. I think, where's the other one? I have another one around here somewhere. I don't know if it's in this room. I think no, it's in my bedroom. That's where it's at. Anyway, but the triquetra has always spoken to me. So that's one thing for me. But he does spend a lot of time on the pentacle, the pentagram. A very interesting read. If you haven't read this chapter, I definitely suggest reading it for that one especially. New assignments for this week. Exercises 13 through 19. Complete and record your experiences in your Book of Shadows. Try to incorporate the Hermetic wisdom and worldview into your daily life. Do the symbol meditation with the pentacle or the triskele. So basically any one of those symbols. So, yeah, there you go. So, any one of those symbols. Um, triple knot images and whatnot. I do like this meditation. Um, I have not tried it yet, but it really intrigues me and I really want to try it. Neutralization. Be aware of your thoughts and feelings. Be vigilant and neutralize thoughts that cause any harm. Like that. Excuse me, I'm getting a dry throat here. Okay. Continuing assignments, daily journal. Continue to write 3 pages. Again, if you're like me, certain shit happens and you can't always do 3 pages. That's fine. I think as long as if you're trying and you're journaling, come on, words. As long as if you are journaling a little bit and you're trying to hit that 3-page mark, sometimes you go over, sometimes you go under. That's okay. Just keep in mind to journal and writing down your experiences, what's happening, what things are a what things are happening physically, emotionally, energetically for you, and keeping a track record of that. Looking back to the previous month, did something similar happen around those times? Maybe your cycles are monthly. Even if you're a man, maybe your cycles of interest and whatnot are monthly, and the way that you feel physically are something that you go through monthly. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're a little bit more spread out than that. But that's something to keep in mind whenever you're journaling. So, 3 pages a day. Focus on regular meditation practice at least 3 times a week, if not daily. Might be a hard one for me to hit. I'm going to try to do as daily as possible. Going to try to definitely hit those 3 times a week. I can definitely hit it daily if, the sleeping meditation is allowed under this. But I'm not counting those. Honor and recognize your intuition. Continue to ask it questions. Use instant magic in your daily life. I think using instant magic in your daily life is a little too much. At least for me, I wouldn't want to. I don't like using it overtly. Excuse me. I am apologizing for that. Then he goes into tips. At times, magic and meditation may feel inauthentic, like you are making it up or using your imagination. Magic is imagination. The power to visualize and is imagination. Magic is imagination mingled with your intention. Think of how magical children are. They haven't lost the ability to imagine and enter the magical state of awareness. You are working with your magical forces, with the magical forces of the universe, but you must partner with them. Your interference. Oh, I do apologize. I can't read. Your interface with unseen forces is imagination. As you continue, you might have vague impressions or imagery. Experiences that turn out to be very meaningful. Record them and remember them. Honor your intuition and experience. And with that, a very, very long video. I do apologize that it's this long. Maybe you can watch this on double speed instead of straight through, but it's the end. It's too late for making suggestions. But anyway, I'm going to leave this here. I am a very tired individual, and I also have 2 kitties that would like treats. And yeah, I have to edit this very lightly and upload it, and I will see you tomorrow for Christo-Paganism Sunday. We are talking about prayer, and then we will be back on Tuesday for Tarot Talk Tuesday. We are going through the 6 of Swords. No. Yes. 6 of Swords. And then Wednesday we are talking about the mirror box. Thursday we are doing our table talk Thursdays, and then we'll be back on Saturday for chapter 9. So until tomorrow, if you are tuning in tomorrow for Christo-Paganism Sundays, I'd love to see you there. Just remember, while you're going around this video and while you're sitting there bored and listening to me, go into the bottom bar, comment, and subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. Until then, until tomorrow, may you have love, hugs, and ladybugs. Bye.